Hello and welcome back to the Google Workspace Update podcast from Strawberry 7. My name is Adam.
And my name is Adam.
We're here to bring you the latest updates around Google Workspace. This audio podcast is available from your regular podcast provider, and we also have a video version of this podcast available on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/strawberry7. Let's get to it.
On with the show.
Just before we get started, I do apologise, listeners. I am feeling a bit under the weather at the moment, so my voice is a little bit hoarse. But Adam will be doing most of the talking, thank goodness. And thankfully, we've only got a couple of updates this week. Is that right, Adam?
Yes, that's right. So the very first one we've got is to do with Google Slides. And we say updates, they're more just like update alerts. They're almost notifications, really. They're not major. So yeah, so first one's to do with Google Slides. So you can now drag content from Google Slides into other apps on Android. So over the last several months, Google has added numerous new features and functionality to products like Google Drive, Docs, Sheets, Slides, and Keep on Android devices. Google has launched the ability to easily drag text and image content from Google Slides to other apps on Android. And for any of the listeners who are paying very close attention and think that this sounds a little bit familiar, if we go back to, I think it was episode 5, we had this exact same update, but this is now the opposite. So back in episode 5, you could now drag content into Google Slides, whereas now you can drag content out of Google Slides. So it's very, very similar to the previous update that we had, but just go in the other direction.
It's funny you say that, Adam, because I thought exactly the same thing. I was thinking, I swear we've had this update before. So, okay, right. That clarifies that thought process for me then. Yeah, sorry. So carry on, Adam.
Right. So improving drag and drop on the Google Drive Android app. So earlier this year, Google launched drag and drop in Drive, allowing you to quickly upload files by dragging and dropping them into the app. Google has now improved this feature by enabling you to also drag and drop files and folders around in your Drive to move their location as you see fit. This can be done either in the two-window view or the single app view. So also full mouse support is now available on the Google Docs Android app. So you should expect full mouse support while using Google Docs on Android that will mirror mouse behavior on the web. For example, clicking and dragging across text will now select that specific text instead of panning the entire document. So I think that would be really handy if anyone is actually using a mouse with their Android device.
Very interesting. Okay, so yeah, there's some interesting use of these Android devices that we're probably not that familiar with because we mostly operate in iOS sort of territory. So yeah, using the mouse with those Android devices, I would assume that would be kind of the tablet devices. Maybe you can use a mouse on those new Z Fold things that they've got or something like that.
Yeah, to be honest, I'm not sure if you could use a mouse on a phone. I'm not sure if you'd want to. I'm not sure how helpful that would actually be. So, I expect that they're actually referring to more tablet devices instead of phones.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm sure any Android users out there will know much better than us how this update is going to affect them. And being able to drag that content around is just so much easier in certain scenarios. I imagine this window by window feature again is probably going to be something on those sort of fold out devices that they have where it almost folds out into a tablet. So that's great. Thank you, Adam. And I don't know if it's on the notes here, but is that just? I guess that's just going to be available across all versions because it's more an update for Android, right?
Yes, that's right. Because these are, they're small. They're more like notifications instead of larger updates. So they're not directed to anybody specifically. It should just be available to everyone that has access to Slides and an Android device in this instance. And so if you do not have access to this feature already, you probably do. But if you don't, then it would definitely be available within the next week or so.
Great. Thank you, Adam. And what's the next update that we've got here?
Right, next up is all to do with Google Sheets. So Resizing pivot tables in Sheets. So Google is excited to announce a requested feature that allows you to resize the pivot table editor side panel when creating or editing a pivot table. This functionality is especially useful when the names of columns or fields are too long for what you want to see in the text entirely.
Okay. I've never really used this sort of thing. I can't remember using this myself, but yeah, I can imagine that would be very useful if the text is too long and you want to see it in its entirety. Okay, no problem.
There's also improved search results based on recent search activity in Gmail. So in July, Google announced better search and suggestion options in Gmail. Now, when using Gmail on the web, this also includes better search results based on your recent search activity in Gmail. This enhancement to Gmail search makes results more relevant and contextual.
Oh yes, I think this is sort of around the similar improvements that they've done when you search for. I think we actually talked about it maybe in the last update or the one before, where it was sort of those suggested searches in Drive and things like that. So this isn't necessarily suggested search, but I can imagine it's using that machine learning almost of how you're searching and what you're looking for and what's relevant to you to just get those searches a little bit better. I mean, Google, let's face it, they do have quite a good reputation for search, don't they? So,
yes, definitely. And finally, so you can share Google Docs, Sheets, Slides, files in Google Meet chat. So earlier this year, Google announced the ability to join or present to a Google Meet call from Google Docs, Sheets or Slides. Now, if you're presenting or joining a meeting from a file, you can easily share that file with meeting attendees through in-meeting chat. With this update, you're able to grant access to a document, spreadsheet or presentation to all or selected meeting attendees, allowing everyone in the meeting to collaborate while having a conversation.
Yeah, this is great. I mean, this is really, for me, where Google excel at this sort of reducing these friction points in collaboration. So rather, like it says in this update, rather than you having to go, oh, okay, I'm in a meeting with, say it was our team, so I'm in a meeting with you, Adam, and Gary and Robert, and I think to myself, oh, okay, so I've got to share that document now with you, Gary and Robert. It's the fact that because we're all in a meeting together, Google's just kind of stepping in and saying, oh, here you go, I'm just gonna grant the access to the people who are relevant because they're in that meeting. Chat actually does something, because we're talking about Google Meet chat here, right? But Google Chat actually does something similar. I don't know if you've noticed it, but if you're in a group where you've, say, got, or what Google call a space within Google Chat, and you've got a couple of you, and you drag a document in there, it will actually check the permissions against the people that are in that group, and it will say, hey, you're putting in a document that Adam, for example, in this group, in this space, doesn't have access to. Do you want to grant him access to this document? So again, it's taking that requirement of the user having to think about that or having to make those changes, and instead it's the computer stepping in and saying, I'll just do it for you because I understand what you want to do in this scenario.
Yes, yeah, exactly. I have seen that before. I know when I add documents into our own Google Chat, it always pops up to say that it's checking the permissions first. And obviously, we already do have permission access to the documents that we're sharing anyway, so it's never an issue. But I did notice that is something that's there, and it's fine for us because we're within the same organisation sharing documents that everyone already has access to. We're just making it a bit easier to draw attention to a document by quickly throwing it in the chat and say, hey, this is what I'm now talking about. Whereas this particular update, that's especially helpful if there's a third party person in your meeting, or it's not a meeting with all of your colleagues or friends or people that already have access to it. Maybe you're it's a meeting with lots of different people, basically. So then it's making it a lot easier to to share your documents with those. And just like the other updates that I've just mentioned, everything this week, they're all just quality of life updates. So then there's no one major, this is our big major update that we're doing this week. They're all quality of life updates that it's all just improving on the infrastructure and everything that's already there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think you're completely right about it being in those bigger sort of meetings where there's more people involved. Well, hopefully the listeners will find at least a couple of those quality of life improvements, as you say, Adam, or the updatelets, which I always like that phrase that you coined. Helpful. Sorry. So that's it, everybody. Thankfully, for my voice's sake, there are only a few updatelets this week, and so we've just got a short podcast this week. That's everything you need to know about all the latest updates happening around Google Workspace. Remember that there's an audio version of this podcast available from your regular podcast provider. There is also a video version of this podcast available on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/strawberry7. Thank you very much for joining us this week.
And we'll be back again next week with more updates.
Goodbye.
Bye.